So we can look more closely at what this little crimson colored hand-shaped symbol on Georgiana's cheek, what it represents in the story. So Almer sort of, again, views it as a symbol of imperfection, right? It's this little flaw, the one flaw that Georgiana has, otherwise she would be physically perfect. And he can't seem to get past the fact that his wife has uh, this tiny flaw on her cheek, and it becomes his obsession, and then it becomes her obsession to remove this birthmark from her cheek and attain some sort of perfection. So it goes back to his drive and ambition, his alchemy, so his pursuit to conquer nature, man's imperfections, and elevate his wife in this case to a level of perfection that is only reserved for um, ideal, almost like an angelic type of perfection, so otherworldly, kind of spiritual level of perfection that humans can't usually attain. So we have this little human hand that's the color of red, so it's crimson colored. So these are also very sort of important features of this symbol. So the fact that it's red, it might bring up connotations for you. So the color red, what does that usually represent? So if we think about the color red as a symbol, a symbolic color, we might think of its association with love. So you might think of red as a color of love. You might think of it as a color of passion. But it's also sort of a color of blood and maybe violence. We might think about red as a symbol of sin. So if you think about how red is often sort of invested with all these sort of connotations that go beyond just merely a color, right? So we have the crimson color of this birthmark on Georgiana's cheek, so we can read into what Hawthorne is saying with this little tiny symbol. So the red color, again, could be a sense of this is maybe the mark of sin on his otherwise perfectly innocent wife's cheek, right? So we have that contrast of the crimson color of the birthmark on the snowy white of her cheek. So she might not have any, she might not be, somebody who does sin, but it's just the fact that she has this mark maybe taints her perfection in her husband's eyes, right? So perhaps this is why he is so obsessed with this little flaw. And then the fact that it's shaped like a human hand, it does sort of generalize it, the symbol. So it's not just Georgiana who is sort of marked with this little hand. It seems to imply that all humans, all humanity has a sort of flaw that she has outwardly, so she has one on her cheek, but we are all marked by nature. We all have the mark of imperfection because we are all humans, right? All humans are imperfect. And the story seems to suggest that we should just accept these imperfections the way we are born and not try to improve ourselves or try to attain an unreachable sense of perfection. But it's Almer's sort of ambition, his drive to conquer nature, that again he takes too far and sacrifices his wife's life in pursuit of this higher level of humanity. So he wants to attain and remove this flaw from his wife's cheek and also sort of conquer his own sense of mortality, or the sense that he can control life and death and nature itself. So one of the sort of discussion questions that we can think about in this story is the nature of the relationship between Almer and Georgiana. So I'm asking the question, does Almer love Georgiana, or does he rather love this sort of ideal or idea of her? And is their marriage a healthy one? So we might have strong feelings in regards to this last question here, but I think their love is again trying to be attained, or he's trying to attain a sort of heightened spiritual, idealized form of love, and he seems to be unhappy with the earthly, material form of love that they currently have. So there is a sense of dissatisfaction within their relationship, and it immediately occurs when he marries her and then finds himself obsessing over this one flaw. Georgiana's love for her husband is very selfless, right? She will do anything that her husband sort of asks her to do. She says, I would, if you asked me to take a dose of poison, I would take it because you gave it to me. And she seems to worship him in the sense that she respects his work and everything that he attempts to achieve. So he's has these very lofty ambitions and goals and wants to achieve greatness, but at the same time, she is willing to do anything for him. And even though he fails in his science experiments, she doesn't see that. She sees that he has all these lofty goals, and it's noble for him to want to pursue his ideas to fulfillment and try to attain what he wants to attain, which is to conquer nature. And she deems his love as being honorable, so pure and lofty that it would accept nothing less than perfection. And so he seems to sort of want a kind of perfection that goes beyond human existence, right? So he can't accept earthly nature the way it is. He wants a sort of perfect, lofty love that exists on a higher level, so a higher spiritual plane of existence. And he is unhappy with the sort of actual earthly material relationship that they do have. So he wants something more. He wants to attain a perfect kind of love that is, again, becomes a dream that he cannot attain. So I think we can all sort of agree that there is sort of some dysfunctional level of their relationship in that he wants an ideal kind of love and he wants perfection within their relationship, and he cannot attain this, right? So it becomes a sort of dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship where she is sacrificing her life in order for her husband to pursue his goals, his scientific goals of conquering nature. So another important discussion question that we can think about is this idea of playing God. So what does it mean to play God? How does Alma play God through his scientific experiments? And if you can think of any sort of examples in our society where we are sort of playing God and science is being taken too far in some regard, we can think about that as well within our discussion forums. But what does it mean to play God, right? It is sort of wielding a power that is usually regarded as a divine power. In Elmer's case, he is trying to wield a power that is only usually reserved for nature. He is trying to control life and death. He shows Georgiana all the sort of vials and concoctions that he has in his laboratory where he's tried to attempt to control life. So he has that little flower that grows and then wilts, and then he has this poison, this very sort of potent liquid that again could make you die or again extend your life. So he is sort of playing God in the fact that he is taking his wife's life in his hands and trying to help her in his own sort of idealized way, but at the same time he's risking her life in order to achieve his scientific goals. And in this case we can sort of say that he's playing God because he's taking his wife's life in his own hands, right? So he is controlling mortality, which is otherwise we would sort of only consider mortality to be something that nature or God or whatever, some sort of divine being would have that control over our lives. So he again is overly ambitious. He has hubris, right? So he again has a power that far extends normal human abilities. And again, he is somewhat punished for this sin of hubris. And then in our society, I put some examples here. So cloning could be seen as an example of science gone too far, genetically modifying foods, and even the case of plastic surgery, which I think is a very apt comparison for this story. So is there an example that you can think of that again um, sort of suggests that our society also takes science too far, that we are unhappy with what nature has sort of given us by birth, and we are trying to wield almost godlike power in manipulating nature. So if you can think of any examples, add those to the discussion forum. The story also sort of sets up a contrast between Almer as a man of science and then the natural world as kind of a feminine or personified female force. So we've all heard of the phrase Mother Nature. That's sort of being evoked in Hawthorne's description of the natural world. And then we have a male scientist, Almer, who's trying to sort of control and wield the powers otherwise given to Mother Nature. So I'll just read you a passage from the story where nature is described as female. So we have here, our great creative mother, while she amuses us with apparently working in the broadest sunshine, is yet severely careful to keep her own secrets, and in spite of her pretending openness, shows us nothing but results. She permits us, indeed, to mar, but seldom to mend, and, like a jealous patentee, on no account to make. So Mother Nature, or the creative mother, guards her secrets, and again, often she'll permit us to mar, so to ruin, but seldom to mend or make better what she's created. So that's sort of where Almer is at, right? He can't really make perfect the imperfect creature or creations of Mother Nature. It is just too much power for one man to wield. And again, it's a sense of hubris, right? He's challenging the powers that be by trying to wield a power that is greater than he is. So in the end, Almer, actually he does succeed in removing the birthmark, but it's at the cost of his wife's life. And we get a sense that he has been blinded by his own ambition, right? He is blinded by his pursuit of this lofty goal, and he can't really see the fact that he has sacrificed his wife's life for a goal that, again, was, unimportant to begin with. So we have, whether you feel pity or, again, you feel Almer is a fool for following through on his sort of lofty ambitions, I think the story is sort of aligns us with Aminadab in this regard, right, who laughs at his master. So Almer he sees as a fool for not being able to recognize that he had a good thing to begin with, that his wife loved him, and he couldn't accept the fact that maybe she had this one flaw, but otherwise she was completely devoted and the perfect wife and partner to him. And then we have Aminadab saying, yes, if she were my wife, I'd never part with that birthmark, right? So Aminadab is more wiser than Almer in this regard, right? He's able to see the beauty of the imperfection of Georgiana, whereas Almer cannot see beyond the physical flaw. So what is the moral of the story? Well, I think we can see that in the end, when Georgiana dies, she pities Almer because he is, again, unable to see the good thing that he has in the present. And she says, my poor Almer, do not repent that with so high and pure a feeling you have rejected the best that earth could offer. And then she dies. Those were her last words. So in this regard, he was unable to recognize what nature had given him, that he had the gift, the greatest that the earth could offer. He rejected that. And then our final lines of the short story: had he reached a profounder wisdom, he need not have flung away the happiness which would have woven his mortal life of the self-same texture with the celestial. So he rejected the best the earth could offer him.